Production funding for Another View comes from the Hampton Citizens Unity Commission, using the time, talents, and skills of a broad base of citizen volunteers to help break down racial and cultural barriers, working to achieve the City of Hampton's community plan for a healthy, diverse community. And from the African American Programming Advisory Group, community visionaries assisting WHRO to engage, enlighten, educate, and entertain all communities in Hampton Roads. And now, Another View.
Good day, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Welcome to Another View. HBCU, historically black colleges and universities. There are 105 of them in the U.S. today, including public, private, 2- and 4-year institutions, medical schools, and community colleges. HBCUs are defined by the Higher Education Act of 1965 as any historically black college or university that was established prior to 1964, whose principal mission was and is the education of black Americans, and that is accredited by a nationally recognized accrediting agency or association. In the Hampton Roads area, we have 3 HBCUs, Norfolk State University, Hampton University, and Elizabeth City State University. What are the issues that they face as they educate African American students in 2009? Are they educating only black students, or has the mission changed? Are HBCUs still relevant in this time of inclusion and multiculturalism? Joining us to talk about it is Dr. Carolyn Meyers, president of Norfolk State University, Dr. Willie Gilchrist, Chancellor of Elizabeth City State University, and Dr. Joyce Jarrett, Provost of Hampton University. Welcome to Another View, everybody. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Let's put it in a historical context first, so that people understand exactly why HBCUs were created. And Dr. Gilchrist, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
They started back, some prior to the ending of the Civil War, but the majority once the Civil War was over. And what was the purpose of starting these colleges?
Well, basically, in our case in North Carolina, individuals needed to be trained or educated so that they can continue to educate those who happen to be of color. So the General Assembly came forth and mandated that HBCUs would be created in very small budgets, with very small staff, very small students, came on board, and primarily at that time to train teachers to teach other youngsters.
And this was after slavery, so this was to educate the black population once slavery was over, correct?
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm. So they started these HBCUs, and some people say now, Dr. Meyers, that, well, we're being discriminatory on this side because these universities and colleges are for black students. But the truth is, they've never been exclusionary, have they?
No, they haven't. HBCUs have always been open to any person that wants to learn. Mm-hmm. And that's a part of our vision at Norfolk State, is to serve resolute learners everywhere.
So it doesn't matter what the skin color or your race or creed.
Right.
And Dr. Jarrett, Hampton has a distinction because you all were one of the first to educate Native Americans, I read. And so tell me a little bit about the mission of Hampton and how you fit into the scheme.
Well, Hampton has a really history of multiculturalism. We were founded in 1868 when General Armstrong, a Union general, founded the institution, as you said, to educate freed slaves. But 10 years later, we opened our doors to Native Americans. And as a matter of fact, Booker T. Washington was the dorm director for a building called Wigwam, and it still bears that name.
Wow.
But for 40 years, we had a very large Native American population. And in years since, we have tried to continue to keep a connection with Native Americans also.
Now, there were 2 schools of thought between Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, because Mr. Washington felt that we should be educating people to work with their hands and to work with the land. And so there were schools such as Elizabeth City, that was a teaching college, but also like North Carolina A&T, which is agricultural and technical. And then Du Bois' perspective was we need to educate the mind and we need to be more about the fine arts and so forth. So each of these schools really had a different mission, didn't they? Can you speak to that?
During that time, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Different mission, but as we began to grow and to integrate and bring more students with a diverse population, then all of us began to expand our curriculum. So it will be very inclusive and not exclusive.
So what does your campus look like today, Dr. Meyers?
Well, I think it looks pretty much like campuses everywhere, in that we have our green spaces naturally. We have the best and most modern educational facilities that we can possibly provide, but more than that, the people there are what makes it really special.
And is it still predominantly black, or
it is still predominantly black, student-wise.
Student-wise, yes.
Right. Our faculties are well mixed, and our staffs. But we are still predominantly black in student population.
And do you feel that that is an important thing to maintain? Because I know, for example, I think it's West Virginia State, for example, started out in Bluefield State, started out as predominantly black schools, HBCUs, and now their populations are predominantly white. Are you afraid, any of you, that the grand mission that you started with will change at some point?
Our grand mission is to provide an affordable, high-quality education. And I think increasing diversity, particularly in this world that is flat, and in which the playground of our graduates is really the whole world now, there's a distinct advantage to increased diversity. We will always be historically black. You can't change history, but you can write new chapters in history.
Okay. Dr. Gilchrist, you want to respond too?
We're not going to change, but we're changing from the standpoint that we're global, and we offer a quality education to all citizens. Elizabeth City State University is 21% non-African American, and so we have a vast diversity there. But in terms of its mission to provide quality education for African Americans, we're going to always be an HBCU. That's not going to change.
You feel the same way, Dr. Jarrett?
You know, I think that one of the myths about HBCUs is that some people think that we are trying to only recruit African Americans, and that's just simply, it's not true. As Dr. Meyers said, Hampton, like many other HBCUs, are trying to be the best among colleges throughout the country. And I think that if you aspire to be the best, you're going to attract students of all nationalities, of all cultures. And that's really what Hampton University is trying to do. And I think one example of that is the Proton Beam Therapy Institute, a $225 million cancer treatment center. And that particular project, though it certainly was the brainchild of the president, he has reached out to all people throughout the country. It's an international project, and it goes to show that if you're willing to bring quality and to be the best, people will gravitate to what you're offering.
Now, Hampton is a private institution compared to you two, who have were both public institutions.
Exactly.
Let me ask you a question first, Dr. Jarrett. In terms of endowments, in terms of funding, and in terms of student scholarship, what is Hampton doing to ensure that you can bring things like this proton therapy center to the college campus, and that you can keep prices affordable so that African Americans and others can still continue to attend?
Unlike public institutions, Hampton has realized that it can either lament the fact that it does not have allocations, regular allocations, or it can dream boldly and take those dreams and sell it to people outside of the institution. And I think that you see that in Hampton doing that. Hampton has been able to really raise money, and it's not just the president or the central administration. Deans also are very actively recruiting and trying to raise monies, telling the Hampton story. And if you tell the story, people will want to invest in it.
Now, what do you two see as a difference? Because you have to go to your General Assemblies, correct? And Dr. Gilchrist, you're a part of the University of North Carolina system. Did that help in terms of funding, or did it not make a difference?
Well, it made a difference, and it definitely helped in the public arena. But our hands are not tied in terms of going out seeking external funds. And we do go out and seek external funds. We do have to expand. We are expanding, but we do depend on the state government to provide its appropriate share in terms of educating the citizens of North Carolina.
Now, there are 10 HBCUs in the state of North Carolina. And if I'm not mistaken, I think 6 of them or so are public schools that are part of the University of North Carolina. How is the allocation? Does everybody get like equal dollars, or does it depend on your size? How does that work?
There are special pots of money for those who are called focused growth. And so we get a little bit more in that category. But all of us are funded on, I would say, our share of the funding based on our mission. Those that are research-based, they go out and get even more additional external funding
for the research
that they're doing. But we do have a fair and equitable way that all of us are funded in North Carolina.
Okay. And Dr. Meyers, is that the same here in Virginia? Now, there are, I think, 6 HBCUs within the state of Virginia, if I did my research correctly, and the majority of them are public institutions as opposed to private. St. Paul and Hampton, I believe, are the 2 private, and the rest are all state universities.
To my knowledge, there are only 2 public HBCUs, Virginia State and Norfolk State University.
Really? Oh, okay. Because I thought maybe
in the Commonwealth.
All right.
And so, and of course, we do not have a system here. So every president and university really lobbies on their own behalf, the entire General Assembly. And I think it's quite wonderful. It's my first experience with it, but being from Norfolk State, I have so much to brag about. So I love it. I love it. We just finished 5 accreditations in 1 year, including the big one, SACS, with flying colors and everything. So, but that's the way it is in Virginia. Each school is kind of on its own bottom, and you have to gather support from the legislature at large. I
was looking on that. This is from Wikipedia, so I may be incorrect. They have St. Paul's College,
private.
Virginia Union.
Private.
That's private. Okay, my mistake. Virginia University of Lynchburg.
Is
that private also?
Yes.
Okay, Norfolk State, Virginia State, and that's what the Virginia schools are. Why then are some of you, and I'm talking about the group as a whole now, able to thrive and survive? And so many of our HBCUs have gone by the wayside. Is it because people feel that there's no more need for that, or is it it's too hard to raise money? I'm going to talk in global terms now about the HBCU. What do you think the challenge is to keep these schools running?
I think in this tight economy, the biggest challenge is the judicious use of resources, and particularly for some that come to my mind that have fallen on hard times, so to speak. Sound business practices were not consistently, or apparently were, I have no first-hand knowledge, consistently employed. And then the sponsors, and in some cases there were church groups or church denominations, had lost sight of the fact of the increasing cost of a quality educational experience. And so the support didn't keep pace with the needs and expectations of the students as they grew. And quality is not free.
Exactly. And the money has to be raised.
Right.
And I echo that, but let me add on. I think as graduates of HBCUs or an HBCU, we must take it upon ourselves to reinvest. If we're not going to reinvest, then surely we're going to fall by the wayside. We can go to corporates and we can go to other privates, but those who were fortunate enough to get an opportunity, then we need to learn to sacrifice and give back.
Exactly.
Do you find that your alumni association is very active?
We have a fiercely loyal alumni association and very active in fundraising. For the past 4 or 5 years, it has raised over $1 million each year to give back to the institution. But I agree with my colleagues here that it's fiscal conservatism in terms of operating the institution that is so important. Trying to get everyone to understand, as my president often says, if you have $1, you can't spend $1.25. Getting people to make that commitment in terms of what we can afford and what we can't. And for those things that we cannot afford, not to say we do without, but to redouble our efforts in going out and trying to raise funds to do those things.
Now, all of us sitting here graduated from an HBCU. I graduated from Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I put out on Facebook questions that some of the people who read my Facebook page might have about HBCUs. And I want to read 2 comments that I got back. One was from a woman named Francina Harrison, and she says, "I know that NSU saved my life." Now, I will say, she said, registration was a nightmare, but those professors went over the call of duty. I know I would never have received that type of special attention at a top 10 school. And then another person said, Barbara, as HBCU graduates, you and I share a special history and bond that many who attend non-HBCUs do not. The attention of that HBCUs give to students and the preparation for real-world tasks are vital. Everybody talks about the camaraderie, and we all know it firsthand. But I'm going to ask you first, Dr. Jarrett, can you explain it to people who have never had the HBCU experience, what that is all about?
I feel that I am a much stronger professional because of my HBCU experience. And that is not just with the camaraderie. It's the no-nonsense background approach to learning. And at HBCUs, I think another myth is that somehow students are not as able. Teachers at HBCUs don't accept excuses. And the reason that 50% of all of today's professionals are from HBCUs is because they were empowered, they were pushed. And that's the value of my HBCU experience.
Dr. Gilchrist?
Well, I can talk about it all day long.
I know, I can too.
Because we were vital back then. We're vital and very important today. It helps you to get a passion about life, gives you that direction and the stamina to run the race. And HBCUs are extremely important, and I don't want to irritate anyone, but even those best and brightest, still we deserve to educate them and not allow them to feel that we cannot do the job, because we can.
So
we are very successful.
We're successful at educating. Right. And we only have a little bit more time, so I'm going to get your response, and I have one more quick question I want to get in here.
Well, part of what makes HBCU special, if you go back to your first question about the history, just as Chancellor Gilchrist said, most were started with an emphasis on teacher education, but that emphasis on teaching and learning has persisted throughout our histories. So if you want to learn and you want someone who's involved in the learning process with you, then you go to an HBCU. And furthermore, when you look at us and why you need us, let me play with you a little bit. I would submit that a whole lot more education goes on at HBCUs than at our wealthier and more established and so-called distinguished universities. It's easy when you have unlimited resources, when you screen on the front end. HBCUs traditionally admit among their classes of students, which do have a bell-shaped curve, just like any other universities, those on the high end, those on the other end. But we will take resolute learners, kids who want to learn, who may not have been exposed or had the preparation. We meet them where they are, work with them for however long it takes, and graduate them. And to me, that's education at its best.
Absolutely. Let me ask one quick question. I know this is horrible to throw out at this point, but the vision of the Center of Vision, let me get the name right, just came out with the Terrorism Task Force report. And it said basically that because Hampton Roads has 2 HBCUs within, they didn't include you, Dr. Gilchrist.
Thank you.
But because we have 2 HBCUs and a Christian faith-based school here, that terrorism is more prevalent here. Let me get your reaction to that very quickly.
That's very disturbing. It's very irresponsible, and it's a downright lie. Let me just say that. They characterized any group, I read the whole report, 210 pages, any congregation of minority people as being a radicalization node, any congregation of faith-based people, also any group of international students. They went after several universities in Virginia because of their international presence and designated them as radicalization nodes. And in talking with the state superintendent of police, which issued this under the imprimatur of Homeland Security, they had no data to support it.
Okay, and I'm sorry to throw that out there, but I did want to get a response to that
it's damaging.
From you all. I wish we could continue. We have so much to talk about, but I do appreciate you all coming and being a part of this. And Dr. Gilchrist, we got to go because they're telling me in my ear that I'm way past time at this point. But I so appreciate you all being here, and I will have you back so that we can continue to talk about topics that affect these schools. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's thanks to Dr. Carolyn Meyers, Dr. Willie Gilchrist, and Dr. Joyce Jarrett for their insight on HBCUs, and we hope that you have been enlightened. Coming up, a tribute to Mom for Mother's Day, but first, some Hampton Roads happenings. Welcome back to the program. Sunday is Mother's Day. Some complain that it's a greeting card holiday, but most of us take the time to remember our mothers in a really positive way. Lisa Godley was out about in Hampton Roads asking some of you to tell us about your mother.
In a recent Essence magazine article, Michelle Obama lovingly wraps her arms around her mother and is quoted as saying, "She made me who I am." But you don't have to travel to the White House to hear that. Just look around and you'll find children of all ages who think the world of Mom and all she's done. Just ask Carol Wiley of Newport News.
She's made a great impact on my life. She has basically saved my life from being an excellent mother, a supporter. She's my backbone. She has helped me through a lot of hard times, not financially, but just by her showing her love to me and give me a lot of good words of wisdom.
We caught up with Chantel Williams across the water in Norfolk.
My mom was always big on education. She always pushed studying and reading and learning as much as you can. And that's taken me far.
She's very hardworking. She never gives, she has 4 kids, she never gives up on them. They come first.
Did you stay on green today? You did? Did you go to kindergarten class today? No. Did you get to go outside today? Yeah. You did?
She taught me about family, about togetherness. I've learned how to deal with my own kids and raise my own kids, and it just loved me down.
And how about the youngest among us? They may not be able to spout off a laundry list of what Mom has done, but they're very certain that she's great at whatever she does.
She plays outside with me and takes care of me. She gives me a treat.
She gives you treats? Does she do anything else?
She reads me a book.
She's real nice. She takes us places, and I love her very much.
To my mom, Lizzie Godley, and all the moms out there, we like to say thank you. Whether you gave birth or were just there to fill that very important void, we thank you for bandaging our cuts, drying our tears, stepping in when we didn't have anyone to play with, for enduring those temperamental teenage years, and for giving us wise counsel our whole lives. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Hey, Granny.
Say Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
And to my mom, Eleanor Ham in Baltimore, happy Mother's Day, Mom. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate hearing from you. Go to www.anotherview.tv and send us your thoughts. And don't forget to sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week email with upcoming show topics. And you can always write us at 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk. Next week, the latest in treatment and care for those with kidney disease. We'll see you next week for Another View.
Production funding for Another View comes from Hampton's 400th Anniversary Committee and the Hampton Neighborhood Commission, partnering with neighborhoods throughout the city, working hand in hand to create vibrant places we are proud to call home and celebrate. And from the African American Programming Advisory Group, community visionaries assisting WHRO to engage, enlighten, educate, and entertain all communities in Hampton Roads.